So a friend of mine on Facebook shared a photo that someone posted from Joanne Fabric with a piece of fabric, and they were like, "What the hell is this?"
Uh-oh.
It's it was a piece of fabric they saw sometime around 4th of July that had shirtless, like 6-pack Minutemen playing drums and walking around, and like basically like jacked founding fathers. But the best part was a shirtless Abraham Lincoln reading a book and laying on the ground.
Are you telling me
And
that
so-
there are thirst illustrations of
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln?
I never thought I'd see the day that I would actually see a physical manifestation of Abraham Lincoln. Because that's what everyone needs in their home, is a shirtless Abraham Lincoln reading a book. I mean, nothing sexier, really.
Nothing sexier. And when I think of Abraham Lincoln, I don't think of Daniel Day-Lewis. I think of the guy from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Definitely not the shirtless
No.
Abraham Lincoln in this piece of fabric.
I want to know who is buying that fabric, and I want to know what the hell they're making with it. Are they making napkins? Are they making doilies? Are they making curtains? Are they making dresses? Because if I see somebody wearing a dress of Abraham Lincoln, I'm going to die. I'm just going to keel over and faint right there.
I feel like that's the kind of thing Frank Zappa would have worn, a Abraham Lincoln dress.
You know what I think they're using it for, Megan? I think they're using it to upholster their couch.
Oh, yes.
Perfect.
Because that's a chair I want to sit in.
The man, the myth, the legend. The heartthrob.
Emancipate my heart, Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my God.
Don't do that to me. Just don't.
Oh my God. Done.
Somewhere in the middle of Arizona, you painted a desert and called it my home.
Hello, and welcome to Spoilerpiece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. I occasionally write for Salt Lake City Weekly, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out there for the record that you don't need to be a member or co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association to be on this show. It just so happens that all three of us fit into one of those roles. So,
right. Part of our origin story is that we all met each other through the group.
Ooh,
Exactly.
origin story. I feel like we're superheroes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
indeed. Well, unfortunately for us, The Painted Bird is not an origin story, but it is a part of this show today. And the other three movies on our docket, are Lake of Death, The Old Guard, and Palm Springs. So let's kick it off with The Painted Bird, and hang on for a second while I put down my cyanide capsule.
Oh my
God. And I didn't even see it. I am going to tell you this, listeners. Evan sent us an email and he was like, I'm sorry, I couldn't finish The Painted Bird. I got 25 minutes into it and had to turn it off. And so then I read the description online and was like, nope. So, but Megan got a little farther than either of us.
Yeah, I made it a whole.
Yes, you did.
I made it a whole 40 minutes into the nearly 3-hour film.
I'm sorry for your loss and for your trauma.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I said this to you guys off air, and I'm going to say it now on the show. I have never, ever walked out of a movie. I have never walked out of a press screening. But if this had screened at a press screening in a movie theater, I would have walked out within the first few minutes. The only reason I got as far as I did was I was able to pause it, walk away, then come back. And I had to do that about 3 or 4 times just to get 40 minutes through. And I was just like, I can't torture
Wow.
myself to watch more.
It really does sound like torture. I mean, one of you who's not me, please, what is this movie about?
Well, I guess so. This is the one sentence plot summary on IMDb. A young Jewish boy somewhere in Eastern Europe seeks refuge during World War II, where he encounters many different characters. And I'd like to say this is a way more lighthearted summary than the movie.
Yeah, that sounds like a jaunty
is
stroll.
Representative. Yes, it does, which this movie is not.
No.
And I'll say the reason why I turned it off 25 minutes in. 25 minutes in, I had already seen animal violence twice in a way that was just completely scarring. And so I paused for a minute and thought, okay, this is rough. I don't know if I can take this. It's in black and white. It's almost 3 hours. If this is going to be the trend. So I read ahead a little bit, which I don't typically do, and saw some of the things that were coming and definitely said, no, I don't have the emotional strength. I'm sorry, listeners. I just didn't have it in me. And I don't know how productive a conversation about it would be with the level of misery that just permeates this movie.
Yeah, this is a brutal watch. Yeah, I almost shut it off in the first, like the opening scene, which is, and I'm not even going to talk about it. It is thankfully not in the plot summary on like Wikipedia. However, it doesn't warn you that the opening scene is the probably hands down most horrific moment of animal cruelty I have ever seen on film. It is disgusting. It is excessive. It is completely unnecessary. And I mean, and here's the thing. If you want to show the brutality of the Holocaust, of World War II, of the brutality the Nazis inflicted, obviously there's going to be horrifying things. But at the part that Evan and I stopped watching, we haven't even gotten to the Nazis. Like, we haven't even gotten there.
No.
It's the townspeople,
Not
the
by a long
villagers
shot.
around. Right. It's the villagers around that this kid encounters that are just so horrifying. Where I shut it off was someone's eyes were being gouged out by a spoon. That's actually not
God.
really what made me shut it off, though, because that surprisingly wasn't that gory. It was the complete, it was a man repeatedly beating his wife because another dude looked at her. And it was just, and hearing her wails and screams repeatedly and seeing him beat her was just like, yeah, no, I'm kind of done here.
Well, sounds like I missed a fucking left riot. A hoot, if you will.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You know, and the thing of it is that, I mean, there are plenty of bleak films out there. There are plenty of horrifying films out there. And I'm sure we've all watched those films and, you know, enjoyed or at least appreciated them. This was so excessive, like I said, in just its brutality and bleakness that I couldn't focus on anything. Like, I couldn't even focus on the fact that this, and I couldn't even focus on the fact that this kid was facing anti-Semitism. I mean, of course that's there, and that's there right from the start because he's facing so much just horrifying prejudice. But I was just focusing on, oh my God, this woman's being beaten. Oh my God, this animal cruelty. Oh my God, this kid's being buried up to his neck and birds are like attacking him. It was horrible.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I've heard enough.
Yeah, I'm getting upset just like talking about it. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys don't want to talk about it
it's
anymore,
fucking
I don't
rough.
have to either.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? All right.
I'm all set.
I don't know if Lake of Death is any happier, but it sounds happier. Lake of Death.
I was able to finish Lake of Death.
That is true.
You know what Lake of Death sounds like an Eddie Izzard bit. It's like Lake of Death. You know, Cake or Death, Lake of okay. So what is Lake of Death? I did not see it. I had one of those weeks where if I could have done anything this week other than what I did do, I would. So I didn't get to watch any movies. What is Lake of Death? How is it?
It's a Norwegian horror film, and it's about a woman who has a twin brother who dies, and she goes back kind of unwillingly to the lake house in her family, and she's very traumatized by her brother's death, and she's there with friends, and then weird things start happening. Like things are moved around and their phones are lost, and there are all these myths about the lake, like dead people, like dead spirits are at the bottom of the lake. And so you start to...
And supposedly the lake entrances people, and they can't stop fixating on the lake.
And the whistling, the whistling lures them in. But it's the kind of interesting premise, or not twist, but wrinkle, if you will, is you're not sure if there are supernatural elements or is it someone in the group causing mayhem.
Yes.
So which is it?
Neither. Ish.
Oh.
No, it's kind of.
No, it's
it turns out. Yeah, so her brother. The thing is that her brother drowned in the lake, and so
it is the lake of death.
It sure is.
He lived. Ish. Was that his ghost,
No.
Megan, that was terrorizing him?
No.
Or that was actually him?
No, he died. Okay, so see, this is how I took it. He died, but then there's that black sludge ooze that invades her body at the end. And so I think the black sludge...
And everyone who's in the lake.
Right.
It's
So
gross.
like the guy who dies, the first guy to die, when she sees like the weird like spreading out on his chest, like of black like veins almost. Yeah. And I think it was invading him too. But yeah, so I think this black sludge invaded her brother to like kind of reanimate him, if you will, or make him undead, if you will.
But he was living in the basement, right? Is that there was a bed in the basement where he was supposedly down there, and that's it's a little confusing. I think that's one of my main critiques of this movie is that the mythology is very confusing.
Yeah, it is murky.
I think from a filmmaking perspective, it's competently shot and edited. And I guess the editor for this, Bob Murawski, has worked on some other stuff. He was, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, Hurt Locker, like he has credentials. And I think for me, that was what resonated.
Those are indeed credentials.
Yeah. Was the editing. I feel like it was competently edited, and it felt like whoever made it knew how a horror movie was supposed to be made in a way that was, when to, implement jump scares and, what stuff would be creepy. But I just feel like the story was super confusing. And that's one of my beefs with the movie, is that the mythology is just incredibly murky and confusing. And there were times where I was like, wait, who is that? What are we talking about? I'm confused.
So we have to talk about the jump scares. There was such an over-reliance on jump scares. I was so fucking irritated. Like, I was irritated very early on in this film because there were just too many jump scares and they didn't amount to anything. And so I didn't feel any kind of palpable dread or tension or anything. I didn't care about the characters. Didn't care what was happening. There were only two scenes I actually enjoyed. And one of them is when they all start kind of turning on each other when they're in the kitchen after they find out all their phones are gone. That was actually a really good scene. And I feel like they should have played into that more and kind of used that as a launch pad, or that should have happened much sooner in the film. Like there should have been more, kind of anxiety about, oh my God, can I trust this person? Who is this person? Are they really who they say they are? And I really think that should have been drawn out more. And the other thing is there's a really beautiful slow motion shot of the protagonist as she's running through the woods and she's going off the dock and she's like about to go into the lake. And that was gorgeous, like such a beautiful, beautiful scene. But I yearned for more scenes like that. I thought the elements of this film were fine. I thought this was a fine film, but I didn't think the elements were good enough to compensate for the issues and like the script. And also about the script, like the blonde woman doesn't even care when her boyfriend dies. Like that's just weird. And then the protagonist, there's a guy who accuses her ex of being like a murderer, and she's just like, oh, okay, he's a murderer. Like at no point is she like, wait a minute, I know him. He's a good guy. He wouldn't do that. There's There's no proof. There's no
Yeah.
discussion. It's just like, oh, okay, he's being creepy and weird. Okay, he must be a murderer. Let me lock him in the basement. Like, it's just, the logic here is completely absent, and it kept irritating me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel bad for Lillian, our main character. She is clearly gripped by trauma, and every guy there pretty much is just trying to get in her pants, whether it's like her ex or her other ex, or it's just
Or
like you
her
have
other
no
ex.
clear conception of what is going on with her. Because for most of the movie, she's sleepwalking and she's seeing things, and you think that she's just totally unraveling, and you're not sure exactly how much supernatural elements and how much it's psychological. But I feel bad for her because people just don't seem to care enough about it. With her sleepwalking, they just seem rather cavalier about it. The scene, Megan, you're referring to where they're in the kitchen and they're turning on each other, I thought that was hilarious because they just decide, well, fuck it, let's just get drunk and high and let's party our asses off until we pass out. Meanwhile, poor Lillian is upstairs. And I think they had tied her to the bed so that she couldn't sleepwalk because they're worried that she was causing some of this by sleepwalking.
No, that was later.
Like,
this
these
is when
terrible friends.
They are. No, at that point, they drugged her. They drugged her without her consent so she could sleep. Yeah. And by the way, that drinking and like smoking scene where they're blasting rock music, that scene was so terrible. It irritated me so much.
Well, how does it end, ladies and gentlemen? Does it end with, everyone dead the way a good horror movie should, or what? Oh, that's a drag.
There were not enough deaths.
No, I mean, most of the people survive, but you do find out the twist as to what happened with her brother and why he died. Which is that they were in a boat and her brother tried to assault her.
Yeah.
Tried to sexually assault her.
It was rapey incest.
And she hit him with an oar. Yeah, she hit him with an oar and then he drowned because of that.
Yeah, good for her.
Oh. Huh.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Touch of the talented Mr. Ripley, because Matt Damon hits Dickie in the face with the oar.
No.
Oh, that's
how weirdly.
Sorry.
Oh my God. That's how Jude Law meets his end very early in the talented Mr. Ripley.
Good to know.
Or to the face.
Yeah, I actually felt weirdly like this was, and maybe just because it's Norwegian, but I kind of felt like it was more kind of, and also the trauma too, like it kind of was kind of a nod to Midsummer kind of, but not.
Yeah, there's a lot of nods to other horror movies in this. Evil Dead, especially because they're going to a remote cabin, and they even say Evil Dead because there's a whole bit about the cellar and going into the cellar and the trapdoor popping open. Nightmare on Elm Street. I forget but there's at least one or two other horror movie references in there.
Definitely, which is not a bad thing.
Nightmare on Elm Street is the one with the sleepwalker, the third one, right? Dream Warriors?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the third, or it's the fourth.
I think so, but this is just kind of a generic reference.
Yeah, I do feel like they could have played up more with the sleepwalking too, but
Agreed.
Yeah, but overall, I feel like there were some good ideas here, or I feel like this could have been really good. But yeah, for me, it really unfortunately fell flat, and by the end, I feel like it had just lost steam, just ran out of steam.
Okay, well then fuck it, fuck this movie.
Well, wait, but Evan, you liked it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say I liked it. I thought that the mythology was really murky. Yeah. So it's. I thought it was a decent horror movie. Like I said, well constructed, just not necessarily in the plot department.
So unlike The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, which we talk about in our Patreon exclusive this week, everybody, it didn't play by its own rules as far as you're concerned.
Yes.
Okay.
I would argue that.
Just checking. All right. Well, do you have any more praise for it, or shall we move on to the old guard?
Let's move on to the old guard.
Yeah. I don't know. So I didn't watch the old guard because I don't want to watch the old guard, and also because I didn't have the time. Well, you know why? Because I looked at the poster and I was like, is this Aeon Flux? What is this? So
it's not Aeon Flux, even though there is a nod to it.
Not even remotely.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not. But all I know is that it looks like Charlize Theron kind of pulling her Aeon Flux face. that's about all I know about it. Matthias Schoenaerts is in it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's why you should not.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
That's why you should not judge a film by its poster.
By its poster, by its one
By its
sheet.
poster.
That's
You were
the-
about to say cover.
I was. The bookseller in me
All right, so-
rises.
So what's it about there, gang?
So it's a superhero film that is based on the comics by Greg Rucka, who also did the screenplay. He adapted the screenplay for this. And it's directed by Gina Prince Bythewood. And it's about a small army of 4 immortals who are mercenaries. And yeah, it's basically about them kind of living in secret and erasing their kind of footprint, if you will, so they're not caught. And then they are found out. And shit hits the fan and goes awry from there.
Yeah, I would say that covers it. The other thing is that a new immortal arises, and so they have this bond with each other where they can see, like, they have visions where they see each other, and so they can track each other down. And so this new immortal it arrives on the scene, and so they bring her into the group, and they try to, I don't know, figure out why she's coming around, because one of the pieces of the mythology here is that when you eventually you stop healing and you become mortal again. So if this new immortal person is showing up, does that mean that one of them is on their way out?
That's interesting that you say that, because I didn't get the sense that there's only like a finite number of them, because as we learn, there are more who, aren't with them for various reasons. So, but you're right. But you're definitely right, of course, that they are trying to figure out why now, because it's been centuries since there's been a new immortal. And that's the other thing too that's really interesting, is that they don't know why they're chosen. They don't know why they are the immortals. Like it's interesting. And it's especially interesting because Niall, the new immortal, is like asking all these questions. She's super curious and she wants to know what's happening, obviously. And she keeps asking Charlize Theron's character, Andy. She wants answers, and Andy's like, there are no answers. There is no meaning. There is no reason. It just is. And, which so interestingly they play off of each other and are pitted against each other, because Niall is a woman of faith and she believes in God, and Andy does not and doesn't believe in anything right now, and is, very nihilistic and, very apathetic, and just is very, very exhausted emotionally from the weight of being alive for centuries.
Yeah. Did they say how old she is? Because some of the other people you can tell based on the landmarks, like the 2 guys in the team that are a couple have been around since the Crusades.
Yep.
And the Matthias Schoenaerts character, he has been around since Napoleonic times. So we know how old he is by comparison.
Yeah, I think, and I know this, I got the sense that she was obviously alive during, because she's Andromache of Scythia. So she's alive during the time of the Greeks, ancient Greeks. And so I also looked in the comics, and it seems like she's been alive for around 3,000 years.
Damn.
Yeah. But I do love that in the film, she never says, like, whenever people ask her, she will never say. She's very shrouded in secrecy. And I just love that. So I loved this film. I absolutely love this. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Gina Prince Bythewood. I love her films. I love Charlize Theron. I love Kiki Lane. I love Matthias Schoenaerts. I love this cast. Except for the villain. The villain I did not love. He was terrible. But everything else.
Yeah, he sucks.
He was terrible. But everything else.
Like he was a bad performer, or?
He's also just a weak character as a villain.
Right. But
who's the bad guy?
I don't have it at my disposal at the moment.
His name is Harry Melling, and he was in the Harry Potter movies. He was one of the kids he was Dudley Dursley.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I know who he is. He was the guy with no arms and no legs in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
I don't remember.
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
the guy
I don't even remember
that
that,
Liam
but
Neeson.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so I loved this. I loved the action sequences. One of my favorite scenes is there's a scene in a church where Charlize Theron in like a matter of like 2 minutes like takes out an entire group of soldiers, and it's great. There's a fluidity to it, and I found the scene super exhilarating. I love when Andy and Niall are on a tilting plane and they're fighting, and that was great. Yeah. And, there's something to be said about how when they're injured and when they die, they come right back. And it has kind of a video game quality to it. Like you never really die. Are there any stakes? And there absolutely are, because you never know when that last time is that last time. So there's that. But I found the action was so well done and well choreographed that there were a lot of stakes even within that. And also I felt like this was dealing with so many deep issues that I really, really appreciated that too. So it's not just a standard superhero film. It's a very unconventional one, which I loved. And there's more. Oh my God, there's so much more I love too. We haven't even talked about the queer element yet.
Yeah. I think that for me was one of the elements that really did resonate, because I didn't like this movie as much. I thought the action was good. I really enjoyed the fight scene in the plane and some of the other action sequences. Although I have to admit, I felt like the entire fight scene in the plane was completely unnecessary based on the fact that Charlize Theron's character just introduces Niall to the group in the worst, shittiest way possible. She just shows up, kidnaps her. Niall tries to run away, so she shoots her in the head and then goes, "Get on this plane. Here's a change of clothes. Guess what? You can't see anybody else from now on. And no, I'm not going to give you any answers." And so they get into a fight for what I feel are completely needless reasons. Although I have to admit, I enjoyed watching it while it was happening. I just thought none of this had to go down if she wasn't such a dick.
See, I don't think of her as being a dick. I think of her as being efficient. That she's just like, listen, I've got shit to do. I've got places to go. I'm too fucking old to be dealing with this shit. Let's get this over with. And so that's how I kind of saw it, and to me, that felt very in alignment with her character, where she's just got no time for nonsense. No, like she doesn't want to deal with anything. So yeah, like she doesn't care about, not that she's uncaring, but at the same time, she doesn't care about coddling her either. So which I think Charlize Theron plays with such great tension. Like you really get a sense that she's just so weighed down by her guilt and her shame and her pain and time. But yet she also is just no nonsense. And she's like, no, we're going to fucking do this. And I'm the leader of this group and I'm always going to go in first and you're just going to listen to me. And that's just the way it is. So I felt differently. I felt that it was, while I could see why you'd feel it's an unnecessary scene, besides the fact that it just looks great, I thought it kind of made sense. Like, and it also sets the tone for the fact that Niall is very assertive herself, and she's not just going to follow orders, even though she's a soldier, even though she's a Marine, she's not just going to follow orders. She's going to have questions, and she's going to be like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing? I need to know. And so I thought it also I just thought it worked on thematic and visual levels.
Yeah. Another thing that I liked was, so Dave, Niall, she's killed in the line of duty. Her throat is cut by this guy that she's hunting in Afghanistan, and her friends watch her die. Yeah. And so when she's resurrected, they immediately are like, let me see your scar. Then she has no scar. And so her friends immediately have suspicions and concerns. And I love how they act that way, because I feel like in movies of this caliber, often people just ignore details like that. Yes. The friends are just thinking, oh, whatever, it's fine. But immediately they turn on her and think, who is this freak? Get her away from me. Yeah. I don't want any part of this. She should be dead. How is she alive? I don't believe anything is going on right now. Which is, I feel like, how people would act in real life.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is I think there are little details like that really, even though it's a fantastical film, it really grounds it. Like also this is such a small moment, but it really spoke volumes to me about who she is as a character. Like the fact when they're going in to speak to the women in Afghanistan and she's like, be respectful. And it's just like the little things like that. And the fact that her friends, so often in a superhero film, you're absolutely right, Evan. I feel like they wouldn't even acknowledge or, show that people are like freaked out, like what the fuck is happening, like yeah, so I thought that was a nice touch.
But you wanted to talk about the queer
my
elements of this film, and
God,
I feel like that was
yes.
the one part that really did hit home and resonate with me was the relationship between Joe and Nikki, who we find out met fighting on opposite sides of the Crusades and fell in love with each other and have been in love with each other and part of this team this entire time.
Well, that's not the only queer elements. There are others, but yes, that is, I mean, that is the most explicit, and it is such a beautiful love story, and it's so wonderful to see in a mainstream action superhero film that these two men just unabashedly love each other, and there's that great scene when they're captured and a dumbass homophobic soldier says, "What is he, your boyfriend?" And Joe gives this like amazing romantic speech that like just makes you want to swoon, because it's about how he's my light in the dark and he keeps me warm when I'm cold, and and even after a millennium I still love his kiss, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is like the most romantic thing ever.
Yeah.
It's just they're gazing at each other, and the way they touch, like it's just so tender and so romantic and beautiful.
And they speak to each other in Italian.
Yes, I love that.
I guess the only thing that I would say about this relationship is, how can you be in love with someone for 700 years?
But that's what's so beautiful, and that's why I love it.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. But yeah, so their relationship is so beautiful and so lovely. But and this is something I wrote about, and it's something that is, after I wrote my article on this film, it's kind of driving me a little nutty, is that a lot of people are overlooking the other queer relationship in this film because it's a much more subtle one, and that is between Andy and Queen, who is another immortal who, as we learn, gets unfortunately captured because the two of them are like first hung, then burned as witches, and then they put her in kind of an Iron Maiden, not with spikes, but like, and then they sink it at the bottom of the ocean, and she is basically dying and being reborn over and over and over for like 500 years. And it's very, very, very clear to me that they were lovers, that they were not just soldiers on the battlefield, that they were partners in life. They are lovers because Andy says to her, or they say to each other, you and me till the end. And just the way they look at each other, I'm like, oh, they're queer. And then when Niall asks, why do you feel responsible for her death? And she's like, well, I lost a soldier. And I was like, the fact that she's so guarded and won't talk about this relationship, to me, because we've seen Andy be so guarded about her age and other things, I'm like, oh, that says everything. The fact that she won't talk about her means that she means so much to her. And so, yeah, and also she's a queer woman in the comics as well. And Greg Rucka, who writes a lot of comics, also writes a lot of queer women in his comics. So, yeah, so that's also another queer relationship that is so tragic, but so beautiful too, even though we see it very briefly on screen. But yeah, but it's such, as a queer woman, I cannot tell you how exciting it is for a film. And I know I've said it, but for a mainstream action superhero film to be so open about queer characters, and, not just one, not just two, but 3 queer characters, 4 queer characters. But also what I love is that Joe and Nikki's relationship is very overt. They're very explicit about the fact that they love each other. It's very clear that they are queer men. But Andy is very quiet, and it's more subtle about her queerness. And I love that we're seeing different kinds of queerness. And it's also great that Matthias Schoenaerts says to Niall, he asks her, he's like, do you have someone special? He doesn't say, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a husband? He says, do you have someone? And that gender neutrality it's a very small moment, but it spoke volumes to me. And the fact that this is a film that's not assuming compulsive heteronormativity, but instead it is assuming or presuming that people are queer, is just, I cannot stress how revolutionary that is and groundbreaking that is in many ways. And it seems like something so small, but it's really so huge. And I loved that.
Yeah, that was a good aspect of the movie. I just wish that the story involving the pharma bro and his whole quest for, I don't even know what, using these immortals to experiment on to prolong people's lives. I wish that storyline was more compelling, because it wasn't doing much for me. Both the villain and the Chiwetel Ejiofor character, who was kind of in league with the villain. I felt like the reason he got into this partnership of tracking them down and using them for science, it all just felt kind of weak, especially because as a old CIA guy, he should know that Pharma Bro is definitely going to use and abuse these immortal people. He's not just going to take samples and let them go on their merry way. So I don't understand why he thought this was even a good idea in the first place. I know there's a trauma of he lost his wife to cancer and he doesn't want, other people to lose their lives. But I just think he is remarkably naive about the circumstances and is stupidly shocked when he finds out that this guy is just gonna use him and lose him.
Yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor, I feel like, is always great, and I really wish, because he's a kind of complex character, because the fact is he genuinely wants to do good in the world. He wants to help, and he does keep hammering home this point, you guys have these gifts, you need to share them with the world. And I love Niall's response to him when she's like, it's not your gift to give. And there's, it's a great kind of moment about, recognizing consent. But I feel like if he had been the villain, that would have been potentially more interesting rather than having Pharma Bro, because he is so one-dimensional and so kind of caricature-y that it's like I almost kind of excised him from the film in my mind, because he's so kind of unimportant, because everyone else is so much more interesting and nuanced than he is. So yeah, I agree with you on that, that I really wish there had been a more complex villain. I do kind of like that there are two villains, though. One, being just kind of one-dimensional, and then the other being, more complex. So I do enjoy that, or at least appreciate that.
Did you see the betrayal coming? Because I saw that a mile away.
It's funny. I didn't, but it didn't surprise me also.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. Would I have seen the would I have seen the betrayal coming?
Yes, Dave, you definitely would have. Okay. So early in the film, the bad guys perform this raid on their compound, and Joe and Nikki are taken, but Booker, the Matthias Schoenaerts character, he is left there with a giant wound. And so immediately I thought, as soon as they leave him, they need him around, because he'll need to be there to betray them later.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when that happens, I knew. There was another thing later when he just miraculously pulls this location out of his ass. He's like, "Oh, we need to go to this house because that's where we'll pick up the trail of Copley, who is the Chiwetel Ejiofor character." I thought, well, he just pulled that out of thin air. He already had that address.
He did, but I will say that I think he, or the film rather, kind of cloaked that a little bit better, just because he was doing research and surveillance and trying to track the money, and so so I felt like that was a little bit more cloaked. But you're right, it is very obvious. Why would they leave him but not take him the way they took Joe and Nikki? It did not make sense. So
yeah, especially because Dave, the bad guys, keep saying we need all of them. We can't just get some of them. We need all of them at once.
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, man. I don't know. I'm. Should I get into this, guys? 2 hours and 5 minutes. Is it worth? I mean, I know, Megan, you're gonna be like, yes, watch
I'm gonna
it.
say
Come on.
yes, it is worth it.
I don't even know why I asked these questions. Yeah.
I mean, if for no other reason, and these kinds of things matter to me tremendously, the fact that this is the first big budget superhero film directed by a Black woman, that alone, I think, is something to celebrate. The fact that there are queer characters, the fact that of the two main characters, one is a queer woman, one is a Black woman, I think those are things to celebrate. And plus, the action is just so goddamn good. And it's Charlize Theron. Come on, she's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that Secret Life of Bees was a big deal, but I mean, I always thought that was an action movie too.
What? Secret Life of Bees?
No, because I know I haven't seen too many of Gina Price Bythewood's movies, but I have seen The Secret Life of Bees. Oh, I saw Love and
Beyond
Basketball
the Lights
too.
Is also great. But anyway, Okay.
I don't think I saw that. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I kind of, man, it's like there's too, damn you, COVID. There's too much.
There is too much.
So, yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I do like this cast though. I like Charlize. She's, I
know you
can't
did
believe
it, the thing you
Charlize.
hate.
Like she's my fucking friend. I know. I like Charlize Theron. I think Matthias Schoenaerts is great. I love Chiwetel. He's like one of my favorite performers who's ever lived. And, everybody else is fine. The ones that I know well enough. I don't know though. I feel like, and this is kind of silly, but when you see a performance as good as Matthias Schoenaerts in Rust and Bone, I kind of don't want to see him in anything else because it's like I don't think you'll ever be that good again. You were just too good in that role. You've ruined yourself
he really
for
is so
me.
good in everything.
Thank you.
I love him in literally everything.
Yeah. Oh my God. When he showed up for 5 minutes in A Hidden Life, I was like, thank God we're going to inject some life into this fucking movie. And it's true. The 5 minutes that he's in that 3-hour monstrosity, it's just like, oh my God, so sinister, yet so like supple at the same time.
I mean, another reason
Anyway.
not to try to really convince you to watch it, but I'm going to because I loved this film so much. I mean, again, I think the fact that it's dealing with, kind of what is, I don't want to say what is the meaning of life, but kind of like, where do you get your purpose from? And, when things are just so repetitive and feeling hopeless. And that's a big thread throughout the film is that Andy feels like nothing good they do matters. Like she keeps saying like her comrades are all like, well, let's go do this mission. Let's try to help out. And she's like, what's the point? Nothing's getting better. Everything, fucking blows. It all is terrible. And with Niall and her appearance, she realizes, and also through talking with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, who's been tracking all of their, benevolent deeds, that Andy has made and her friends, they've all made such a huge, huge impact on the world that they don't even know. And so I kind of love this notion or this thought of being plagued by, does anything I really do matter? Everything is pointless. Nothing matters. But then it's like, no, actually things do matter. And I think it's done in just a really thoughtful way. And so that's another element to the film too, that I really liked. And there's just great ass kicking if you want that too.
Okay. Well, then I will, I'll see if I can squeeze it in.
Sounds good.
So there you have it. Yeah. All right, gang. Well, I think now is as good a time as any to move on to the one movie all three of us have seen, Palm Springs, or as I like to call it, Groundhog Day again. When I didn't know that it was like a day repeats itself on a loop movie until I hit play and I was like, oh my God, this is a movie that repeats itself on a loop. No, but it's actually so much better than that. It's actually kind of got a new take on the whole, day repeats itself. It's not, not new the way Happy Death Day is, for example, but I thought it was really, I don't know. I really enjoyed this a lot. Who wants to log line it?
I was like, let's not all jump at once.
So Andy Samberg is stuck living the same day over and over, and he accidentally drags Cristin Milioti into it with him. And then she's like, I gotta get out of here.
That's a good short description. Yeah. That's very succinct. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
They meet at a wedding where Andy Samberg is there with his girlfriend, and she is the sister of the bride. So they're stuck reliving this wedding day over and over again, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I like that too.
And yeah, I think there's a certain hilarity to it, especially because the first time that we see them meeting, even though we find out later that Andy Samberg and her have met and hooked up many times that he's lived this day before, is that they both see Andy Samberg's girlfriend cheating on him. They're both spying through the bathroom window on her cheating on him.
Well, that's after
with the efficient, right? Yeah. with the wedding officiant,
Yeah,
right?
it
Yes.
is that.
The Australian guy
Yeah.
who's leading the ceremony.
But what I kind of love is that's not actually like their first interaction. Like the first that we see is Andy Samberg like giving his great wedding speech and looking at her saying, you're not alone, and being kind of weird and like
Mhm.
and like watching her on the dance floor like as he's like stealing people's drinks. Like, yeah. So, but I do kind of love that then they bond over seeing his girlfriend cheat on him. It's very weird.
Yeah, because he's like, hey, do you want to go somewhere?
Yeah.
And she's like, don't you have a girlfriend? And he's like, she's just cheating on me. Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, it's fine. Who cares?
Yeah, it is. They have a rapport right away.
Mhm.
To your point, Megan, when he's giving that speech, it's when she realizes that she's supposed to give a speech and has nothing prepared. So he just stands up. And I love that he shows up to this wedding wearing a Hawaiian shirt and these yellow shorts and sneakers. And he just jumps up there and just starts making a speech at the wedding, which turns out to be a good speech, even though it's just utter bullshit.
Was a good speech though.
They
Right.
have a rapport right away, and I love the chemistry between these two in the movie. I think that it's one of the strongest aspects of the film is their rapport, even from that first section where they meet on the dance floor and he's doing all this goofy stuff. There's some guy that's standing up and he's dancing behind the guy, and then he gets tired and Andy Samberg pulls a chair out so he can fall into the chair instead of falling on the ground. And I just thought that was really a cute scene.
I agree. They do have a great rapport.
Yeah, I dug this. I was really bummed out that there's actually a big section of the movie that she's not in after she's like, fuck it, I gotta get out of here. And then he can't find her for days, for who knows how long.
Mhm.
You get the feeling at some point that he's been stuck in this loop so long, he actually can't remember what his life
Yeah,
used to
because
be
he
like.
can't remember his job.
Yeah. And that's why at the end I was surprised when he's like, oh, I got to go pick up my dog. And it's like, oh, he remembers
Well, that's
that.
important. Remembering your dog.
Yes,
is
but he
important.
remembered it late.
That's
Yeah.
true.
What I did like about this movie, and I think what sets it apart from other stuck in a loop movies, that's going to be my go-to phrase, stuck in a loop movie, is that Andy Samberg and Cristin Milioti are basically stuck in the worst day of their life. Maybe not the worst day in their life, but pretty
Yeah.
close. Stuck in the worst day of their life. But then somebody else who's stuck in the loop, J.K. Simmons, he's actually stuck in one of the best days of his
Right.
life.
Yeah.
But he's still sad about it, you know? So I just thought that was because, as he says to Andy Samberg at one point, he's like, you know, it's great. This was a great day. We had the great tuna steaks on the grill and my kids are out here playing in the backyard. And it's just a great day. But like, I'm never going to see them grow up and graduate high school and get married and nothing. He's like, this is what I'm doing forever, you dick.
Yeah.
Following that, I was a sobbing wreck when he says, you got to find your Irvine. And Andy Samberg says, I don't have an Irvine. And he's like, we all have an Irvine. And J.K. Simmons is such a fantastic actor. I mean, he can just act the shit out of any scene just for like a few moments. And there was so much tenderness and heart in that scene. And there really is. Yeah, and there really is throughout the whole film, but especially encapsulated in that one scene. And that I just was like, oh my God, this is the best. And, it's so true. Like, and, I love a time loop film. I do. But I love that this is so much about finding the good and the joy and the happiness in the banality and repetition. Like it very much feels like the myth of Sisyphus, like finding that joy, in pushing that goddamn rock up that hill, every day and every moment. And so, yeah, I loved that scene. And I thought this was wonderful. It's like a soothing balm or like a cozy blanket and very comforting, which is really nice right about now.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I was pleasantly surprised by, I knew Cristin Milioti was
She's always good.
And she's actually like exceptional in this part. And Andy Samberg was too. Like he really brought it.
Yeah.
I always appreciate his comic acting. And as much as I like Celeste and Jesse Forever, I think he's just like at that stage in his career, he was just a little bit out of his depth, which is about 6-7 years ago now, I think. But in this, man, boy, does he bring the pathos and never slipping into the bathos. And that scene where he finally like tells Cristin Milioti everything that has happened, or as much as he can, that has happened between them. Like, I was like, my God, I'm watching this guy's heart break right in front of me, and I believe it, you know? It was a really great scene. And to your point, Megan, about J.K. Simmons, this is the thing about J.K. Simmons, is I think that you kind of forget sometimes, ever since, what's the drumming movie called?
Whiplash.
Ever since Whiplash, he's been, I don't want to say pigeonholed or typecast, because that's not exactly what's happened, but he's been used as a character who has that edge. And I think, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but the way he was cast in this and the way he plays it, he's got that edge, but then he doesn't have that edge. You realize, oh, this is a whole round human being who feels things too. And he just really, really pulls it off in that backyard scene with Andy Samberg. And I was like, oh, that's right. God damn, J.K. Simmons is really good.
He is always bringing it.
Yeah.
He is
Well, I hadn't
really
seen
good.
him. Yeah.
I always enjoy seeing him. He's, I think, a very versatile and talented performer. And even in this role, like you're saying, Dave, you see so many different sides of him, because you find out that him and Andy Samberg meet and they party, and Andy Samberg tells him about this cave. And which allows them to reset the day, essentially. And J.K. Simmons gets pissed about being stuck in this day, so he keeps trying to hunt Andy Samberg down and kill him repeatedly. And that's where you first meet him, is that he's shooting arrows and hitting Andy Samberg, and he's murdering him in all of these twisted, fucked up ways. And so to see that balance against that gentle, tender backyard scene where he's found peace and he's found a way to live and appreciate the day rather than be upset about it, it's just incredible.
Yeah. I also appreciated the way it came around. He had to be run over and then die slowly in the ER. Because Andy Samberg, one thing he says over and over is like, you remember everything and you remember the pain. If you are in pain, you will remember it. And when J.K. Simmons is like, so, you know, they had to keep me awake in the ER because they thought that I was going to like fall unconscious because of the concussion, and then he dies anyway. And then he apologizes to Andy Samberg for like killing him so many times so painfully. And it's like, oh, wow, we can learn even in, you know, it was just very cool. But I also appreciated that the way to get out of the day was not, you know, learn to be a better person like in Groundhog Day. It was just, it literally is a glitch in quantum physics that makes this made this happen. And Cristin Milioti, because she's apparently, her character, whose name I can't remember, of course,
Sarah,
is really, really, Sarah, thank you. She's really, really smart. So she just like, I'm just going to take a bunch of physics courses until I figure this out. And then she figures it out. And that's how she gets out of the loop.
Yeah, I love that she's the one who saves them. I think that that's really great. And that also was really interesting, that scene, which, by the way, I love that. I know we talked about this before, but I love that the Genesis song, The Brazilian, is playing in that montage of her taking those quantum physics courses. But it also really, really, really reminded me of The Good Place, which is one of my absolute favorite TV shows. So, you know, that's learning philosophy to better your life. And this is learning quantum physics to save your life. And so, yeah, that scene really worked. And I also really, really appreciated that they have very different perspectives on it, that like Andy Samberg's like, especially by the end, and he's like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here with you. And she's like, I got to get the fuck out of here. This is terrible. Like, you know, I love that she's like, you know, I love you and I want to be with you, but I can't do it. And he's like, I love you, I want to be with you, but I want to do it. Like, it's just, I think it was great to show that they have, you know, divergent perspectives on this. And I thought that was great. And I also feel like the film is, you know, we keep talking about the joy in the film, and it's such a genuine and sincere film, but I feel like it really earns those emotional triumphs. Like, I feel like it really earns, you know, the backyard scene with J.K. Simmons, and it really earns that ending. And
yeah, well, and it earns, like, when she says, I've got to get the fuck out of the stair, however she puts it. And then the next thing you see is her waking up and she's had an affair with her sister's fiance. And you're like, oh, now it's all making sense. you know?
Yeah. And I feel like I definitely saw that one coming because they kept showing a door open with the shower running in her room. And she, I think every other time before that, left before you got to see who was in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what
that's
I
right.
liked that it subverted my expectations on? I really liked that by the end, when it's the final, like, this is the day we're doing before we leave. I really like that she didn't confess to her sister. Like, she kept that guilt to herself. And there's something about that because people so often they feel like they need to unburden their guilt. And really, you're just
No,
don't
don't
do
unburden
it.
your
Like, you're
guilt.
really just
Don't.
wrecking someone else's
No.
life. And yeah. And so there was
Exactly.
something about, you know, and of course we can debate as to, you know, should she have told her sister? Should she have not? But I really did appreciate that this film went a different route that way. And she kept it to herself. And she, you know, told her, you know, now brother-in-law, like, you better not fuck this up, you know. I
Yeah.
also really appreciated that he seemed genuinely remorseful too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, which good. So I guess, you know, he just made a mistake and her sister's not marrying a total fucking
Right?
douche.
Yeah, that was kind of nice to see. Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I was a little sad about is that when they leave the loop, they don't take J.K. Simmons with them. I think it's kind of shitty that they leave him there.
Did you not watch the closing credits?
I guess not.
No, you didn't. He comes up. I can't remember how it happens. There's the closing credits, and then it cuts back to J.K. Simmons walking up to Andy Samberg at the wedding reception, and he's like, "Dude, I got the message from your girlfriend." I guess he's talking about Sarah. It's like, she found a way out. Like, what is this? And Andy Samberg's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "What do you mean, who am I?" He's like, I'm Niles. Who are you? And he's like, "Oh, I'm so and so." He's like, I think I'll get a drink. And that you just see this smile on J.K. Simmons' face, like, oh my God, there's a way out.
But see,
So,
I didn't.
did you not watch that?
I watched that.
I didn't see that. No, I turned it off. I was like,
no,
okay,
you gotta
movie done.
No, you got to watch the credits. See, I didn't take it that way. I took it as he was happy for them for getting out, not that he's like, oh, I can get out now. Although maybe that is certainly, you know, a valid thing. Like, of course, he's probably thinking that too. But like, yeah, I took it more as he's like, good for you. You got the fuck out. Like,
See, I took it like, oh, he can get out and now he can watch his kids grow up and, you know, graduate high school and whatever. You know what would be really terrible, though? If in the sequel he did get out and then his children had the worst lives ever. That would that would be, oh boy. That would be a bummer.
downer.
Sounds like the sequel to The Painted Bird.
Let's not talk
That's
about
right.
that film again. Also,
Yeah.
something I want to bring up because it's such a small thing, but again, not going to come as a surprise that I appreciated it. I really appreciated that in his million go-arounds, he was experimental in some queer sex. I'm like, thank you. So
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I thought that was like a really good choice. That he was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Nope, wasn't for me. Okay, I tried.
I didn't get that it wasn't for him, although he didn't do it again. So maybe it wasn't for him. But regardless, I was still like, yeah, I was like, good for you. Good for you for putting yourself out there and going for it.
Yeah.
I had a feeling something funny like that might happen because the first time you see that character, he's hitting on Andy Samberg, and Andy Samberg doesn't say no per se, but he kind of says something like, "Oh, you saucy minx."
But it's funny. I didn't feel like that was being played for laughs. Like, I didn't feel like it's like, oh, ha ha, two guys are, you know, having sex. Like, no, I thought it was very, very much like, yeah, I did this. This is what happened. Like, which I very much appreciated because I was like, if it's played for a joke, then that's homophobic and gross. But I didn't take it that way.
Yeah, I think this movie, you know, is much smarter than
and
that.
Sweeter than that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprisingly kind-hearted, this movie in the end. So, yeah. So, all right, guys, I think that's a good place to end unless anybody else has anything to add about Palm Springs.
No.
Ooh, that's a no.
No.
All right. So let's do a little recap here. I think we should say, see The Painted Bird if you want to die of pain and torture.
You want to die of young age.
Yeah. But otherwise, maybe don't see it. And I haven't seen it, so I can't say that. But between Megan and Evan, they saw about an hour of it. So, you know.
Between the two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we got a split on the Lake of Death. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say skip it.
and we have a split on the old guard. Although Evan, it was all right.
Yeah, it was all right. I wouldn't
Okay.
go so far as to say not to see it, but I thought it was okay.
And I loved it.
Yes, and I think yes. And I think we have 3 very enthusiastic, please go see Palm Springs when you can.
Yes, I dug it.
So, all right. Well then, gang, that's this week's episode of Spoilerpiece Theater. Oh my God, we got through another COVID episode of Spoilerpiece Theater where we can't see each other face to face. But you know, that's the way life is now. So
it's the way of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, nonetheless, we persist 6 years later.
Nonetheless, we persist 6 years later. That's right. This is the 6th anniversary of Spoilerpiece, and thank you for being with us this long. Thank you, patrons, for being with us for as long as you've been with us. And speaking of which, I think we should mention the patrons by name because that's a thing we like to do.
We do. So we want to give a huge thank you to Bob Chipman, Chris Wilkinson, Daniel Ronsley, Davida Margolin, Deirdre Crimmins, Elisa or Elisa, Christopher Jensen, Max Coville, Mike, Lord of the Sith, woohoo, we love that name, Rory Glenn, Sean Pensionar, Shauna Harris, Shelley M. McCaskill, Shona Glasgow, and Zach Pigeon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, patrons.
Thanks, everybody. And so the podcast, you can find it anywhere you can find podcasts. If you really like the podcast, please go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. If you would like to get in touch with us for any reason at all, you can send us an email, spoilerpiece@gmail.com. You could leave us a voicemail
at 86221-PEACE.
And we will listen to it and we will consider your thoughts and we will maybe put your voicemail on the air. Unless you call me an asshole, which people have done before, so don't do that. I mean, that's a little throwback to the 6-year anniversary, but you know. And I don't know if I forgot anything else other than if you really, really love the show, like if you really love it, like you can't get enough of it, we would encourage you to please become a patron of ours. Go to patreon.com/spoilerpiece. For $1 a month, you can just be our pal. For $5, you get to vote polls and all that kind of stuff. And we'll have a poll up very soon, which will be for, well, we're not going to tell you what it's for yet, but it'll be cool.
But you get exclusive audio too.
Yeah, you get exclusive audio. That's the point I'm trying to make. You for $5, you get exclusive audio. For $10, you could tell us what movies that we have to see, which is what happened this week. One of our patrons is like, you will watch The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension. We were like, okay. And then we did it, and that's this week's exclusive audio.
And then we did it.
We did the deed.
And then we did
not
it.
that deed, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So anyway, that is this week's Spoilerpiece Theater. Thank you very much for being with us for 6 years. My name is Dave Riedel. I write sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly. You can find me on all the socials as Dave Sees Movies. That's your tweets, your Instagrams, and your letterbox.
My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. And you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
So before I do my outro, I also want to give a very huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. We could not do this without you. Thank you so much, Otto. We love you and appreciate you. And
Thank
also,
you,
Otto.
Our social media, in addition to all of the places to call us and to email us, you can also find us on Facebook at Spoilerpiece Theater and at Spoilerpiece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. So my name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media. I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
And we will see you guys next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Bye.